Previously on After the Uprising.
I'm pretty sure St. Louis County discovered that the crime actually happened in the city, so the city took over the investigation. So, yeah, there's a lot more to it than I can even begin to tell you.
He said, no, Mom, they follow me everywhere I go. Mom, I'm telling you, he said, they're going to kill me. If they do, he said, don't you ever let them tell you nothing different.
The people at this traffic stop are FBI Special Agent, a U.S. Deputy Marshal, and a police sergeant, in addition to the uniformed officers who are apparently making the stop, and that tells me that it's a task force.
I got a hold of our detective, and essentially the suspect we applied for warrants on is deceased.
This case never got issued. However, I do see Mr. Irvin is deceased, and I don't know when he passed away.
What you're looking at is the aftermath of the grand jury deciding not to indict Officer.
29-year-old Darren Seals was murdered before his killer set his car on fire.
Once they put out the flames, they discovered Seals' body inside with a gunshot wound.
Pointed guns on me and my 14-year-old little brother, it's Ferguson PD. Grabbed me by my hair, slammed me out the car. He said you might want to pick your enemies better.
Stay out the way, run a check up. Stay with that AK, don't let up. I be on the drugs, no love in the city of thugs. Gotta thank my God, they'll wake up, cause I ain't got hit with a slug. Yeah, that shit can get so wicked. Watch your homeboys and watch the ones you kick with. That shit can get ridiculous.
The music we just played was from the Bottom Boys song Can't Go. The verse was performed by Anthony Irvin, a.k.a. Kilo. The music video is available on YouTube, and if you watch it, you'll see that it begins with Darren driving in his Jeep with a young woman by his side. Ironically enough, Kilo's verse ends with him singing, "Watch your homeboys, and watch the ones you kick with."
So his uncle had a recording studio, and Lil Ant used to go down there into his uncle's recording studio. When he was younger, he started out singing gospel. The whole family sung gospel.
This is Kilo's grandmother, Peggy McNutt. As an adult, Kilo lived with her from time to time, so she was aware not only of his efforts to establish himself as a rapper, but of the many incidents of violence in his life. Note that when she speaks about him, she calls him by the nickname Lil Ant. Ant is short for Anthony, and as that was his father's name, he was Lil Ant.
He got shot 21 times.
What?
At that time, Lil Ant wasn't living with me. His mother had put him out the house in 2016. His mother had a boyfriend that didn't want Lil Ant there, so she put Lil Ant out. Now, I told her, maybe you should think about this. Only thing out on the street is death or jail. That's just it. He got shot right there between your eyes. That's why he kind of looked like he was cross-eyed. But when they released him from the hospital, that's when he started staying with me.
Kilo was shot on several different occasions. His grandmother had a hard time keeping track of these events and placing them chronologically. Looking through available police reports, we can see that one of the incidents in which Kilo was shot in the leg actually happened on the evening of September 6, 2016. Yes, that is less than 24 hours after Darren's body was found. It's an event that's hard to decipher by just looking at the police report. But Kilo and another man, Marquand Lee, both end up shot at the same location in Castle Point, basically at the same time. But they go to the hospital separately. And then they both tell the police that they have no idea who it was who shot at them or why. Again, Peggy's memory of these shootings is fuzzy, but she does remember that there was once an incident wherein several agents who she didn't believe were local police came to her home looking for Kilo.
First of all, I wasn't going to open the door to just anybody, not even the damn police, okay? Because the police did come here. It wasn't the city police. I don't know what kind of police these was. I don't think they was police out because they had on black, so... My guy said, those ain't policemen. He said, those are feds coming for him. I said, well, why would the feds come for him?
Kilo was killed on April 19th, 2020. He was shot around 6:30 p.m., though he didn't die until later in the evening when he was in the hospital. His grandmother says he was able to call her from the first hospital he was taken to.
Yeah, he talking to me and telling me, Grandma, you don't have to come down here. They finna transfer me to Barnes.
What did he sound like?
He sounded like himself. He didn't sound like he was in distress. That's why come I didn't worry about it. That's why come I didn't go down there. So we was very calm that everything was going to be all right. And then all of a sudden they said he passed. And I'm like, well, how could he pass when I just got through talking to him? He was talking normal. He wasn't talking like, I'm hurt. Granny, come on down here to see about me. Come get me, Granny. Come help me. None of that.
Did he ever tell you who he thought was shooting at him?
No, he never told me. And I never knew. And that's just how that went.
If you remember, in episode 2, Tefpo told us that he heard Darren was killed by a rapper who himself had been murdered in 2020. That describes Kilo. Tef also said that this rapper was killed in retribution for Darren's murder. We wanted to know if that was true, and fortunately for us, we were able to get the report from the St. Louis County Police that details the investigation into Kilo's murder. It's 97 pages long, and it contains a lot of information. Interestingly, the first officer on the scene was flagged down by a man named Marcus Hines, who was trying to load Kilo's body into a car to get him to a hospital. Kilo was reported as having been unresponsive. Taking this fact with what his grandmother Peggy said about talking to Kilo on the phone when he was in the hospital, we have to presume that Kilo was revived by medical staff before he ultimately passed away. Anyway, according to Marcus, he had been inside the house where the shooting took place when he heard arguing outside and then gunshots. He then went outside to see what was going on and found Kilo bleeding on the lawn. The home didn't belong to Marcus, and Marcus said he didn't know the full name of the person whose house it was. Detectives who arrived described a blood trail from near the front of the home to the back seat of a car in the driveway, which they found consistent with the story Marcus told of trying to get Kilo into a car so he could get him to a hospital. On the ground were 4 spent 9mm bullet casings, as well as bullets and parts from a broken pistol magazine.
What initially alerted police to the shooting was a system of microphones that are present throughout the area that automatically call police if there are gunshots. This system is called ShotSpotter, and apparently the ShotSpotter had indicated that there were shots fired both inside and outside of the house, so police entered the home. There was no one else there, but they did find 4 more spent shell casings just inside the door. They also found another pistol, an electronic scale and plastic bags, which they believed indicated that the house was used to sell drugs. As police were canvassing the neighborhood, the owner of the house where Kilo had been shot came home. Her name is Latasha McPherson, and when police asked her if she knew Kilo, she said yes, and that he was, quote, Satan's seed. She said Kilo was not welcome in her home because he was always pulling guns on people and trying to rob them. While police were investigating, an anonymous caller reported a black Pontiac had been abandoned just up the street at a dead end. Police found the car and had it towed. The car belonged to a young man named Troy Doyle Jr. Troy actually returned to the crime scene and stood outside of the police caution tape. He identified himself and voluntarily went to the police station to give a statement. Marcus, the man who was trying to load Kilo's body into a car, also voluntarily went with the police. Their testimonies are long, so we'll try to condense them to the most necessary facts. We don't have audio of Marcus, but reading from the report, we know that he said he was cooking food when 2 cars arrived at the house, one being Troy Doyle's Pontiac, the other a Dodge Durango that remained parked on the street. He said Kilo exited from Troy's car, as did another black man. He says it sounded like Kilo had sold a broken firearm to the other man. He says that these men argued as they approached the house. Then, there were gunshots, and the other man got back into Troy's car, which drove off towards the dead end. The Durango parked on the street also fled. We do have audio of Troy Doyle Jr.'s multiple statements to the police. Across it, you can hear his story change. You can also hear how detectives work him for details, using a variety of tactics. In his first interview, Troy is being questioned by detectives Matthew Levy and Jason Whiteside of the St. Louis County Police. And Troy starts a statement by claiming that he was in Castle Point that day, looking for someone he called Lawnmower Man to help him clean the rims of his car.
What were you doing today?
Well, I woke up this morning, my plan was to get my car cleaned today.
Do you usually have one person you go to up there?
Yes, sir.
Who do you go to?
His name is Mark. I call him Lawnmower Man.
Lawnmower Man? Mm-hmm. Hey, where'd you pick him up at?
When I picked him up off of Duke.
And where were you guys heading from there?
Well, I was going to go back to his house and let him wash my car in his driveway at his mom's house, but then that's when he hit me with, we might not be able to do it there.
Okay.
So I was going to go on Castle to my Uncle Joe's house to see if we can do it there.
Okay. So
then we just was riding and talking, went up on Castle, went towards the dead end of Castle. Bunch of shots and stuff went off.
Do you remember how many shots you heard?
I know I heard at least 3.
Troy said he found Lawnmower Man and just happened to be driving by the house where Kilo was shot, and hearing the gunfire, that he ditched his car at the dead end out of fear and ran away, heading for his nearby uncle's house. When asked, Troy stated it was only him and Lawnmower Man in his car. He claimed he didn't know Kilo beyond him just being a guy from around the neighborhood.
Did you see anybody at that point?
No, sir. I panicked, jumped out my car, took out running. I did see Anthony laying down. I ran past, like I say, I panicked and I ran to the 103 block, the house that I showed you, 104 block of Castle.
So you ran back down?
Yes, sir.
To your uncle's house. One thing though, quick, do you know Anthony?
I know him from the neighborhood.
Okay. What do you know about him?
Not too much.
Not too much?
He just be out there.
Okay.
Back up for a second, Troy. When you're driving and Lawnmower Man Marks, was he in the passenger seat?
Mm-hmm.
Is there anybody else in the car?
No, sir.
Okay.
Lawnmower Man.
After their first interviews, both Marcus and Troy voluntarily gave DNA samples and were released. When Troy's car was searched, police found 4 cell phones and a duffel bag containing many plastic bags of marijuana. When police brought Troy in for a second interview, his story began to drastically change. He starts off saying, again, that he was driving with Lawnmower Man, that they passed the house where Kilo was shot, and that he saw Kilo standing alone in front of the house before he heard the shots. The lead detective in the case, Detective Christopher Braymiller, joins the questioning and, with Detective Levy, begins to add new details, telling Troy that witnesses had seen Kilo getting out of his car. And it soon seems to become apparent to Troy that his initial story isn't going to hold.
I have a few problems with this because, one, at that time of day, there's several people outside, okay? There was more than one witness who said they seen Anthony get out of your vehicle.
That's not true.
When's the last time Anthony was in your car?
He was in my vehicle earlier yesterday. I took him to the Conoco,
Okay.
the gas station.
Just you and Anthony in the car?
Yes, it was just me and Anthony.
So he was right in the passenger seat?
Yeah.
So how are you going to explain if Anthony's DNA comes up somewhere else in your car besides the passenger seat?
I mean, he done been in my car more than once.
Okay, but...
And he done been in the front and the back seat of my car.
Okay, but I'm talking about fresh DNA. How are you going to explain that? Troy, here's the thing, man. We're giving you an opportunity here to get ahead of something. Okay, it's whether or not you want to take it. He just told you Anthony's dead. Do either of us think you shot him? Absolutely not. No, we don't. I don't think you shot him. But do we think Anthony was in your car today and some shit went bad? Yeah. But you got to start talking to us now, because if
You're either going to be a witness to this homicide, or you're going to be a suspect in this homicide.
Yeah.
And that's what it's going to come down to.
Because in the state of Missouri, there's something called felony murder, where if you're involved in a felony crime and somebody dies as a result of that felony crime, you can be held accountable of that.
I wasn't involved in no crime.
Okay,
I wasn't going to commit no crime.
That's fine, but why was Anthony in your car today? You got to start talking to us, Troy.
Anthony was in my car, like I say. This is not ordinary. What do you do? I come over there and he gets in my car.
Okay. Why did you pick up Anthony today?
I picked up Anthony today to take him to Conoco. After we came back from Conoco, he asked me to drop him off on Castle.
Okay. Who else was in the car?
It was me, him, and Lawnmower Man.
And who else?
That's it.
No. We got witnesses up there, Troy. Who else
That
was
whole damn street has doorbell cameras. And where you went and parked your car, I don't know if you've ever paid attention over there. I mean, there's cameras shining right down that alley, or right down that little street at the dead end.
You just heard Detective Braymiller tell Troy that the street is home to many cameras, implying that Troy should just fess up to what happened because they have it on video. In truth, detectives did go door to door, asking residents what they saw or heard that night. And of those who did have doorbell cameras and who cooperated with the police, their cameras actually captured nothing of the shooting. Further, no one in the neighborhood claimed to have seen anything. Several residents said they heard shots, but that was all. So, when detectives are making these statements to Troy about witnesses and cameras, they're hoping he will himself come forward with facts that they themselves do not yet have. And it works.
You need to get ahead of this.
Troy, he just said...
Honestly, I did not know what was finna happen.
That's fine. Then let's sit here and have a grown man talk. Who else was in your car?
Me, Lawnmower Man, and Wubby. I'm going to tell you the truth.
Wubby?
Mm-hmm. His name is Lamont Joyner.
Lamont Joyner? Is that your uncle?
It's a cousin.
Lamont Joyner, or Wubby as Troy called him, was apparently riding in the car when the men arrived at the house, where an argument ensued. When the detective asked what the argument was about, Troy said that there had never been a plan to kill anyone. He said he would never drive someone to do something like that.
I think I would leave my car here. It had my phone in here. This car is registered to me.
Right.
All this in my name. If I'm finna take this guy up here to kill or whatever, whatever. I'm not that smart, but I'm not that dumb neither. I'm not that dumb neither.
Okay, so where do you guys find Lawnmower Man?
Where did we find Lawnmower Man? I picked Lawnmower Man up on Duke.
Okay, where did he get in the car? Which seat?
He got in the passenger side.
Okay, and then what happened?
And then we went up on Castle.
All right, I have a little bit of problem with the seating, but we'll get to that in a minute. What happened when you got up on Castle?
When we got up on Castle and let Anthony out.
And who else got out?
Him and Wubby, I guess, got out the car because he was trying to get Antonio to tell him to get back in the car to calm him down or whatever.
What do you mean to calm him down?
Because basically, I guess he was getting heated.
Why?
For whatever the words was.
Why?
Because the guys up on Castle, they don't like him up there.
Okay, well, what happened between those two? We already know.
It wasn't really nothing that happened that day. I'm guessing something previous didn't happen.
With regards to what?
With Antonio and the guy that was up there.
What did he do?
So those guys up there already felt some type of way about Antonio already. So I was already telling him, I'm like, those guys might be laughing and smelling with you, but they really don't care for you, really. So Antonio had something of he liked to be like a Debo kind of sort of type of person.
When Troy says that Kilo was a Debo type of person, he's making a reference to the character from the movie Friday, who, using his formidable size, bullies everyone in the neighborhood, stealing from them at will. This seems to line up with the statement made to police by the homeowner, Latasha McPherson, the one who called Kilo Satan's seed.
He had the type of an attitude if he felt like you was a little scared or just maybe a little bit, he feeds off of that. So those guys up there, they showed him a little bit of weakness, as I can say. So he was thriving off of that. But I guess today, what he normally go do, I guess today it just came to.
So why would we shoot him?
Wubby didn't shoot him.
Who shot him?
I have no clue. I didn't see nobody shoot him. Wubby didn't shoot him.
How do you know Wubby didn't shoot him?
You tell me that both of these guys get out of the vehicle. You hear gunshots. There's only those two out there. Nobody else, just those two. Lamont gets back in the car with you. You're just leaving that one part out where, yeah, I see him. I think it's honestly because you don't want to snitch, but you're going to end up walking yourself into a homicide case.
But see, Anthony and Lamont didn't get out together.
I know. But Anthony's up there with a gun. Lamont gets out to go confront him. Your buddy gets out to go confront him. I have a very hard time believing you go, no, I'm not going to watch this. That makes no sense to me.
I promise you. Because like I say, this is not Antonio's first time doing it.
I get that, but he has a gun and your boy's getting out of the car to confront him.
And he wasn't going to confront him. He was going to get him to basically tell him like to stop. Like, you know, he was trying to save him from doing anything crazy. It's basically, and you see what happened. He was trying to save him. And Anthony is my friend. His daughter, mother, and my family are first cousins. Like I would never do nothing like that. I would turn anybody in if I seen them shoot him. I don't have no problem with that. I'm telling you the truth. I did not see that man get shot. I would tell. I don't have no problem with that. I honestly thought it was somebody in that house that did that to him. And I was just thinking, if his camera's on the house, the cameras on the house gonna show we'll be shooting him in that front yard.
Yeah, what we want is your version, not what the camera showed. You know what I'm saying? Because cameras can show a lot of things, but the camera can't show what you saw. So we're gonna walk out, man. We're gonna put you back in and figure out what the hell we're gonna do, but that's it. Is there anything else before we walk out? This is it. We're not gonna keep bringing you back in, man.
So we don't know what's gonna happen?
No, I'm asking you, is there anything else before we walk out?
No, sir.
Okay. We will conclude the interview.
Whoopi's side of the story after the break.
Now, back to the show. On April 20th, the day after Kilo was shot, Lamont Joyner, a.k.a. Whoopi, was arrested without incident at his sister's house. As fate would have it, as police were leaving that arrest, they saw Troy Doyle Jr.'s car on the road. Though he'd been released after giving his last statement, police now had an arrest warrant for him. So they pulled his car over, only to find that he wasn't in it. The car was being driven by a relative of Lamont's, Shatia Joyner, who said she borrowed the car from Troy. An officer asked to see the keyring in her hand, which had connected to it a screw-top device, inside which the officer found 3 small bags containing what he believed to be fentanyl. When police went to arrest Lamont Joyner under suspicion of murdering Kilo, a special agent from the FBI named Owen Cunningham came along. The report states that several of the officers who participated in the arrest were driving unmarked task force vehicles, but all specifics are redacted. Taken together, it appears as though the presence of the FBI is explained by the fact that a task force of some kind was interested in Kilo's death. Was this a drug task force? A gang task force? In episode 6, Mike German, examining the FBI documents on Darren, suggested a task force was responsible for pulling Darren over. Is this the same task force that is working the Kilo case? And how does the presence of these agents connect to the stories Kilo's grandmother told about agents searching for him when he was still alive? In questioning, Lamont played dumb, claiming he didn't know why his name had even come up in a homicide case. Most of his interview sounds something like this.
Your name has come up in our investigation.
About what? I did? What?
So, yeah.
Yes, I did it?
Yeah. Well, I want to get into it with you. I'll talk to you about the case.
Oh, that's like, what? Because I'm like, I don't know. Like, this is my first time. I know y'all check my background. I don't know, like, how this go, like what I done, like what they say I done, like I want to see what I done, like I don't know. That's why I'm like I don't know what the like. I ain't trying to have y'all run around. I just don't know. Absolutely. I just don't know what's going on. I swear I'm looking at you. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, and
that's why I'm so confused. Like what's going on? Like my name got caught or something. Because my name meant something don't mean I. You know what I'm saying? I just want to know what Boo says. What's going on?
That's what you guys will figure out when you two talk back and forth.
That's why I'm asking. Like I don't want to say nothing. I don't know what's going on. Like I'm asking you like what I don't know.
Detective Bray Miller gets to the point and asks Lamont if he knew Kilo.
Do you know the name Anthony Urban?
What's the nickname?
I guess he has a bunch of them.
I swear, sir, I don't know nobody. I swear, I promise you guys, I'm looking at you. I don't know nobody named Anthony, nothing.
Okay, well, let me ask you this. Where were you at last night, around 6 p.m.?
I was with my people, my cousin.
Who's your cousin?
Troy.
Who else was with you guys?
It was just us.
Just you and Troy?
And we were dropping what's it? I don't know his name. I don't know him like that.
You were dropping who?
I don't know him.
What's his nickname?
Kilo.
Kilo. Okay. You were dropping him off. Where did you drop him off at?
Castle.
Already, it's looking bad as Lamont starts off by claiming not to know Kilo, at least not by the name Anthony. And then he stumbles as he admits that Kilo was in Troy's car with him. The detectives show Lamont a picture of Kilo.
So, you know this gentleman?
Oh, yeah, that's what I said. Why, yeah.
That's Kilo, right?
Yeah, but I'm gonna let you know, I don't deal with him. I ain't never dealt with him. He ain't never situated me. I don't know what this man got going, you know what I'm saying? I don't know what this man got going with himself. I don't know what this man had going on.
Let me back up a little bit. Okay, so you guys pull up on Castle to drop Kilo off, right?
Yes.
Okay. Did you ever get out of that car?
No.
You didn't get out of that car?
No.
What if Troy said you got out of that car?
No, I ain't got no car. If Troy said I got the car, in the day, y'all gonna find out. Y'all, if they saying I did, I know. I ain't got no car. Troy, I ain't got no car.
Despite his story, the detectives have already been told by both Troy Doyle and Marcus Hines that Lamont got out of the car with Kilo. And after pressing him on it several times, they also got Lamont to finally admit that there was a fourth person in the car with them. But he said he didn't know the man.
How many people were in that back seat?
It was just me. It was just us.
Just you three?
Yes.
There was nobody else in that back seat?
Who else is in the back seat? That's it. It was just us.
Just you three?
Yes.
Nobody else?
I don't know that dude. I don't know him like this.
But there was somebody else in the back seat, right?
Yeah, but sir, I don't know them niggas. Excuse me, that's my sir. I respect. I don't know them people, sir. I don't hang. I just go to the store. He said drop him off.
I want to make sure I get this right. You guys pull up. There's Troy driving. You in the front passenger seat, and Kilo in the back seat with another guy you don't know. You guys pull up. Kilo gets out of the car. You guys hear gunshots, and you guys drive off, park the car, get out, and run, right?
Yeah, panic. That was a panic, and then it dropped. Panic. We don't know what shots coming. We don't know what's hurt. Why we stay there for? Why we take them up? Why we take Kilo on some bullshit? Let me ask you something simple. I'm sorry. Yeah. Let me ask you something. Why was somebody? Why we go on some bullshit? Like we don't know what. Why?
Over the whole interview, Lamont denied ever getting out of the car with Kilo and insisted that he was not his killer. Both Troy and Lamont were booked for armed criminal action and murder in the second degree. The next day, police from the Mystery Task Force, along with the FBI special agent, went out to find Lawnmower Man, whose name they determined to be Marks Bartley. They found him walking down a street pushing a lawnmower. When approached, Marks started rambling about a shooting. Marks voluntarily went to the police station to be interviewed. He told police that on the day of the shooting, he'd been outside when Troy's car approached him. Kilo was in the car, and he started demanding that Marks cut his grass for him. Marks went on to claim that Kilo was a bully, and that the word on the street was that Kilo had told some local drug dealers that they needed to pay him if they wanted to do their business. Marks called it, quote, some sort of an extortion thing. He said Kilo told some older drug dealers to, quote, cut him in or cut it out, and that he tried to pull the same thing on another set of dealers, and that's what got him killed. Interestingly, Marks told police he was not the fourth man in the car that night. He said he was never in the car with Kilo. According to Marks, the fourth person in the car, the one that Lamont claimed in his interview that he didn't know, was another member of the Joyner family who police figured out was Joshua Joyner, Lamont's brother. Police arranged a photo lineup to be viewed by Marcus Hines, the man who was found trying to help Kilo into a car. Police wanted Marcus to identify Lamont as the man he saw in the yard that night. But it seems at some point, the police gave up after Marcus continuously refused to meet to view the lineup. Now here, something even stranger happens. An entire year goes by. Why? We can't really say. But after a traffic stop on April 18, 2021, Lamont's brother Joshua Joyner is finally arrested and brought in for questioning regarding the killing of Kilo. More after the break. Now, back to the show.
You know a gentleman goes by Kilo, Anthony Irvin?
Yeah.
He was shot and killed over on a castle last year.
Mm-hmm.
It's my understanding that you were in the vehicle when this happened.
I was in the back seat.
You were in the back seat?
Yeah.
Okay, just walk me through what happened that day, man.
Look, when they picked me up, because I was coming over to get some marijuana.
In a sort of confusing way, Joshua basically describes that there was an argument going on that seemingly took place inside the house. He says that when Kilo and Lamont were outside again in the front yard, Kilo was heated and Joshua got out of the car to try to calm Kilo down, but ultimately got back in the car when he wouldn't.
Let me ask you this. What was the argument about?
I can't sit up there and tell you what was the argument about because all I heard was blah, blah, blah. It happened so fast like that. This shit happened fast, man. He got out the car with him. He was telling him the same thing, what I was telling him to bring his ass home. That's why I'm saying he ain't shooting.
You didn't see him shoot, correct?
Yeah, I know he ain't shooting. He ain't had no gun. When I got in that car, there ain't no guns in that car. I understand that's my brother and all them, but we don't carry no guns. We don't do that shit, man. We was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. That's all it was.
Yeah, so you think somebody in the house shot him?
I think somebody in the house shot him. Yeah.
After running through his version of events, Joshua ultimately says he thinks someone inside the house shot Kilo, which Detective Braymiller tells him doesn't align with the fact that Kilo was shot in the yard. In their discussion, there is a really interesting statement that the detective makes offhand.
My brother told him, come on. And then he looked in the back seat. My brother told me, like, tell him come on. But I can't tell no man to come. I can't.
Yeah, man. And I know this guy's no angel. But I know how he is. I've dealt with him for years.
Detective Braymiller is referring to Kilo when he says that he's no angel and that he's dealt with him for years. Finally, the interview ends with a detective explaining to Joshua what is going to happen next.
They're going to book and release it, and then I'm going to present the case to the prosecuting attorney's office sometime this week. Okay.
So I ain't go after this. Y'all ain't gonna talk to me no more. None of that shit.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it to the prosecuting attorney. They're gonna review the case. If they think there's evidence against you for the murder, then they'll talk to you again.
But you know I ain't did nothing though. Be honest, you know I ain't did nothing though.
Yeah, but I also believe.
I know, but
I believe that you're leaving some of the stuff out.
For as what? You think you think my brother did kill him? Be honest.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
You know, because your brother's saying you weren't even there, you know, that he didn't know who the other person in the vehicle was, and playing dumb on it, well, why is he lying?
Because he don't like to be in no bullshit like that.
Yeah, but in a situation like that, it look bad when you lie, especially when there's a body. You know what I'm saying?
So y'all feel like I got enough evidence on my brother to say he killed him?
It's leaning that way, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's definitely leaning that way.
And then another strange thing happened. Namely, nothing. The cases of Troy Doyle Jr., Lamont Joyner, and Joshua Joyner were all immediately moved to St. Charles County, which is adjacent to St. Louis County. Why was this done? Because of a conflict of interest. As it turns out, Troy Doyle Jr. is the son of Troy Doyle Sr., a longtime lieutenant colonel serving in the St. Louis County Police Department, who at the time in question was serving as the director of the Justice Services Center. In March of 2023, Troy Doyle Jr. was sworn in as the new chief of police for Ferguson. What we can see from the documents we've been able to get from St. Charles County is that the attorney in charge of the case is Kerry Sullivan. We see that in October of 2020, so about 6 months after police arrested Lamont and 6 months before they would arrest Joshua, Kerry reaches out via email to Detective Braymiller to ask him to show the photo lineup to Marks Bartley, aka Lawnmower Man. Braymiller responds, telling her that he wants to talk with her about the case either over the phone or in her office. We have had many issues getting local agencies in St. Louis to comply with Missouri's state transparency sunshine laws. And to this point, in our document request to St. Charles County for records, in this case, we only got 2 emails back. The one we just mentioned, and a second one sent by the St. Charles attorney a few months later requesting an update.
In his response to that email, Detective Braymiller is a bit coy, referring to a person as, quote, the one we talked about, instead of by name. Context allows us to presume he was referring to Joshua Joyner. After all of this, the interviews with every witness, the gathering of evidence, the moving of the case to a nearby county, and off-the-books meetings with that county's attorney, nothing ever happened. Lamont Joyner was not charged with murdering Kilo, and Troy Doyle Jr. and Joshua Joyner were not charged with anything relating to the case either. All we have to explain why these 3 men were never subject to criminal charges is a copy of a warrant application refusal sent to Detective Braymiller from St. Charles County. It states that warrants to arrest Troy and Lamont are being refused for the following reason. Quote, unable to determine shooter beyond a reasonable doubt, witnesses uncooperative, lack of physical evidence to determine shooter without eyewitness testimony. This warrant refusal was sent out on March 2, 2022, nearly a year after the arrest and questioning of Joshua, and 2 years after Kilo's killing. The sparse return of documents to our requests on this case from both St. Charles and St. Louis County is troubling. We have the audio you heard of Lamont and Joshua Joyner because St. Charles County provided them to us. But when we got the videos of Marks Bartley and Marcus Hines, the files were non-functional. They were 0 bytes in size and existed only as unplayable file names. And there was no video given to us at all of Troy Doyle Jr. Producer John Duffy got on the phone with Katie Rickerson, the manager of the St. Charles County Prosecuting Attorney's Office, to ask about this.
You tried to get me those video files. Did they work for you?
No, they did not. If we would have needed them, we would have researched how to play them and whatnot.
And then you said you didn't have one at all for Troy Doyle Jr.?
No.
Did you guys get rid of it, or were you never given one? Do you know?
I sent you everything we had, so if I didn't give it to you, we never got it.
I guess my confusion is because you gave me a letter that said that St. Charles County didn't have the evidence necessary to move forward on trials with any of these men, but then it would be weird that you were given either no evidence for some of the men, like Troy Doyle Jr., or evidence that didn't work. Like, where'd the...
I mean, you always have the right to put in a request to St. Louis County or the St. Louis County Police Department to see what they have.
Okay.
The St. Charles County prosecuting attorney was responsible for bringing Kilo's killers to justice, but seemingly they weren't provided with all of the video evidence they would need to go forward with a case. Was this failure to provide all the video testimony to St. Charles County an intentional move made by someone in St. Louis County who was trying to protect Troy Doyle Jr. on behalf of his father? Or was it an innocent mistake? If so, what explains the total failure to prosecute at least Lamont Joyner for shooting Kilo? The email that we read from St. Charles County Prosecuting Attorney's Office that said they didn't have enough evidence without witness testimony makes it seem like they couldn't have just subpoenaed Marcus Hines to testify in court. At the end of the day, we did this deep dive into Kilo's murder to see if it looked like he was killed for his possible role in Darren's death, or if there was possible crossover with any of the players. The one link we found seems to be Troy Doyle Jr., who is cousins with Bottom Boys member LP, which we were able to determine by looking at Facebook. The effort to collect information on Kilo's death was riddled with hurdles placed before us that took months to clear, and Darren's case was even trickier, with simple information such as his medical examiner's report being kept behind lock and key.
This is Sherry.
Hey Sherry, this is Ray Novoselsky. I got 3 sunshine requests with you.
Yes. Thanks for calling.
This is Sherry Luter from the St. Louis County Prosecuting Attorney's Office. You heard her at the end of episode 6, telling us that Anthony Irvin was recommended for prosecution as Darren's murderer. I'm calling her so that she might talk to the medical examiner's office and tell them that it's okay to give us their report on Darren. We got a response from the medical examiner's office that they couldn't share the autopsy because just this week they said that it was an active investigation by the prosecuting attorney's office. I'm curious if they contacted you about Darren Seals and you were like, no, we're moving ahead on something with that, or...
Oh, Darren Seals. How do you spell it?
It took her a minute to find Darren's case in her computer system, and she actually had to find it by looking up Anthony Irvin.
Yeah, so here's Darren Seals, and the reason that I couldn't find it before is because we have his name is Daren, not 2 R's.
Oh, wow, okay.
So that's, and we also don't have, there's no information in our system on this man except an address. Like, we don't have a social, we don't have a date of birth, we don't have a race, a gender, a height, a weight. There's nothing in here about this victim except an address.
After talking with Sherry, we were able to convince the medical examiner to give us Darren's autopsy report. It describes that his body was on the floor of the passenger seat in his Jeep. His lungs had no soot in them, so he was dead before the fire started. And the bullet that killed him, it was fired into his face. It entered through his teeth on the lower left side, pierced his tongue, and traveled upward into his skull where it was lodged. But still, so many questions remain. And as we scratch at them, so many new questions come to the surface. Why did the prosecuting attorney have no basic information about Darren in their computer system? And if Kilo was Darren's killer, why? Why would Kilo want to kill Darren if Darren was trying to help Kilo's rap career take off? And why are we seeing so much FBI involvement? Not only Darren's massive FBI file, but the FBI participating in arresting Kilo's alleged killer. What were these guys involved in? We hoped the other members of the Bottom Boys could shed some light on all this. That's next time on After the Uprising. After the Uprising is a production of Double Asterisk and iHeart Podcasts in association with True Stories. Season 2 was written, reported, and produced by Maria Chappelle Nadal, John Duffy, Mallory Kenoy, and Ray Novoselsky. Executive producers are Nikki Ator and Lindsay Hoffman for iHeart Podcasts, John Duffy and Ray Novoselsky for Double Asterisk, David Cassidy and Ruth Vaca for True Stories. Directed by John Duffy and Ray Novoselsky. Theme song and score by Zachary Walter. Sound engineering and mix by John Autry. Fact-checking by Muffin Humes. Marketing by Allison Cantor. Fair Use Legal by Peter Yazzie and Brandon Butler. Legal by Holly DeCann for iHeart Podcasts and Keith Sklar for Double Asterisk. Missouri Sunshine Legal by David Rowland. Show logo by iHeart Podcasts using a photo by Attilio D'Agostino. Our interns were Hannah Madura and Rosemary Feary. Website by Stephanie Clark. Recorded at David Weber's Airtime Studios in Bloomington, Indiana. We want to acknowledge additional investigation that became part of this podcast was conducted by Detective Adams in the St. Louis County Police and the FBI, who did not participate in this podcast, and by Amir Brandy, Mosi Secret, and Darnell Singleton. If you like our work, check out our other podcasts. You can find us at doubleasteriskmedia.com and on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Support us on Patreon. If you're enjoying the show, leave us a rating and review on your favorite podcast app. Thank you to Jamie Dennis, Danny Gonzalez, Jonathan Hartwig, Beth Ann Macaluso, Matt McDonough, Melissa McInnes, Ryan Mears, Tony and Val Novoselsky, and the family and loved ones of Darren Seals. Bottom Boys and DOA tracks used via fair use. So was the news reporting archival. Copyright 2024 ** Inc.